Today I have chosen Anna because what I want to talk about is I want to talk about combining two systems together. What I want you to do is I want you to visualize how the look is going to end up. So we're going to take the back so that we get a really nice curved look at the back going into the hairline. And on the sides, what I want to do is I want to utilize Anna's wave pattern so that this moves back away from her face, okay? And I want to have this so that it clears the ear completely. So I'm going to expose the ear completely. And then with the top, okay, I'm going to cut the top so that all of this moves back, but by itself, so that we get rid of all of this, you know, the bulk that we have. And we leave the hair with just the wave pattern. Because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be combining two systems together to create the look that I have just talked about for Anna. So in the back, we're going to take our vertical layering technique, because what I want to do is I want to take all of the wave out of the back and just leave the root system. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the rounded graduation technique to work with the wave that we see on the sides and on the top, and amalgamate that into the vertical layering at the back. So we're going to end up with two different textures. I want the texture here to be really nice and smooth so that we don't have any hair that's flipping out, okay? And with the sides and the top, I want to leave the wave pattern so that when Anna does her hair herself, basically all she's going to have to do is take this hair, comb it back, okay? And this will flow into the texture that I've cut into the back. Now, let me explain why I'm going to take the hair around the ear. And it all has to do with the hairline here. Anna's hairline grows into the center. So when I have a hairline that grows into the center, okay, what I want to do is I want to try and utilize that growth pattern. Because if I leave this hair long to try and cover up the way that that hair is growing, then all this hair is going to do is it's just going to stick out. So when I have a hairline that grows into the center, I tend to cut my shape into a point which will then follow through and go right around the ear so that all of that, okay, flows into the hairline and into the back. If I try to leave this longer so that the ear is covered and this shoots into the center like this, then it just looks like I have a hole here right behind the ear. Whereas when I take the side section and make it clean around the ear, this balances with the hairline at the back. So vertical layering at the back, rounded graduation on the sides and on the top to achieve our finished look. So I just want you to see the sections. We have, whenever I do a layered haircut, remember, we look for the crown. The crown always separates the front from the back. My sections are never even because of the way that the hair is growing. So we can see that this section here is smaller than the section here on the left-hand side. When I come through to section off the side section, I'm looking for where the hairline changes direction in the front, and a parting goes straight from the back to that point. Now, the idea behind the vertical layering is we've got to get the hair to work by itself, and we've got to get the guideline to be the correct length with the very first cut. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for where this hair, see how it waves, I'm looking for where this hair bends into the neck. Because if I leave it longer than where the hair bends into the neck, then this hair here is going to flip out. And if I cut it shorter than where the hair bends into the neck, then I'm going to be into the root movement, and then it's going to stick out. I'm going to show you the sections that I'm going to take, and if you want to get more in depth with the vertical layering technique, then I would recommend going and viewing the vertical layering technique on the blueprint DVD, the blueprint video. So I'm going to take my first section like this. I'm going to look for where that hair bends into the neck, and then I'm going to cut my guideline in. Then I'm going to come through and I'm going to cut my next guideline from this point up to right around the ear. When I take my sections are going to be like this. I'm going to subdivide, pull the hair straight out from the head. The important thing that we have to remember is by the time I get to the occipital bone, that parting is going to be straight around. And by the time I get to the crown, this parting is going to be in that direction, so that when I subdivide, I'm subdividing following the root system. So I'm going to start at the back, looking for where that hair bends into the neck, bring this hair down and cut into a point. So that when I comb it, that hair just bounces into the neck. Then I take my next section and I bring that down and cut it to exactly the same length, so that that just sits. See, that's what I want, is I want that hair to just sit into the neck so that it's not flipping out and it's not sticking out. That now is going to be the correct length for all of the layering that I'm going to take all the way through to the crown area. So I subdivide that now. Drop the first section out, okay? Always drop the first section out and cut straight up and down, okay? And then take the next section. So that when I comb it, okay, that just sits into the neck. When I come through to do this section of hair right behind the ear, I'm going to take this parting and combing that hair straight down, holding it with my middle finger and cutting above my middle finger right to the top of the ear. Okay, so that when I comb that, that just moves. You see, I'm just following that root system all the way through. So now I'm going to cut all of this side, okay? There's my guideline, pulling it straight out. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting off the curl. I'm cutting off the curl and the wave so that I am actually just left with the root system. So that just sits into the neck. And I'm going to do that all the way through until I get right up to the crown. So this is what I mean when I get up to the crown. You see my parting, it started off in this position. When I got to the occipital bone, it was straight around. And then it has to come around in that position so that, and the reason why is so that when I subdivide, I'm always subdividing following the root system. That is really, really important. So my fingers are still parallel with the shape of the head, because it's the shape of the head that is going to give me the shape that I actually want. And then this is the section where I am right at the crown area, and we can see how this hair grows. It grows completely over towards the left-hand side. It has nothing to do with the right-hand side here, which grows way over to the right-hand side. So subdivide, making sure that my fingers are parallel with the shape of the head. And you know, the great thing about this system is that I never have to worry about the hair sticking up at the crown area, which I think, you know, is a problem that a lot of stylists have when they're cutting short hair. Because you see, that's what I want to see, that kind of texture. And you see, when I blow dry, that's going to move, that's going to fill out there, and it's going to give me the look that we talked about when I did the consultation. So remember, when we do the right hand side, we're not going to take any notice of the side that we've already cut, because the wave pattern here and the growth pattern is completely different to the side that I have just cut. So, but the one thing that we have to do is we have to look once again for where that hair bends into the neck. That is the thing that doesn't change. So I'm going to bring this hair down and then cut up into my point. Okay, so that moves into the center. I'm going to bring another section down and cut to exactly the same length. And the difference between the left-hand side and the right-hand side is that from the hairline to the occipital bone, my fingers are pointing downwards and I'm cutting on the underside of my fingers. And from the occipital bone to the crown, I'm going to be turning my fingers over, and then I'm going to be cutting on the top of my fingers so that I can follow the shape of the head. So I've got my two sections, subdivide, pull the hair straight out from the head, fingers pointing downwards, then cut up. Take the next section and cut up so that once again, okay, that sits into the neck. Okay, I'm going to comb this hair straight down, and I'm not going to pick it up between my fingers, because if I pick it up between my fingers, I'm giving the hair a finger width of graduation, and it's going to make it too short. So everything has to be cut right against the skin, which means that the shorter your blade is, the more control you're going to have over the section that you're going to be cutting. So as you can see, my scissors are really short. They're like around 4 inches, and they're not offset. Because for me, you know, there's a lot of discussion about, you know, scissors and how they should be. for me, everything has to balance, whether I'm doing a haircut or whether I'm holding the scissors. And, you know, if you look at your hand, the balance point of your hand is your middle finger. So when I hold the scissors with my middle finger, okay, my scissor is perfectly balanced. If I use my fourth finger, okay, then I've got too many fingers underneath the scissor, and that's what makes me pick the hair up between my fingers, because there's no way, if I'm holding the scissors with my fourth finger, there is absolutely no way that I can have these scissors flat against the skin, which means I would have to go in like this, which makes me pick this hair up and cut between my fingers. I'm moving Anna, but in the salon I would be walking around so that I'm not just standing in one particular place, because if I'm standing in one place, then what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be over directing this hair towards me, which is going to make it too long right behind the ear. So I'm going to keep going. I'm right at the occipital bone now. This is straight around. Okay, and I'm going to be cutting this part on the top of my fingers with my fingers pointing downwards. So now I am at the crown area, and we can see how the hair grows. Subdivide, pull that hair straight out from the head, and I'm cutting on the top of my fingers. So you see, once again, you know, when I'm at the crown area, I'm not having to do this kind of business to make the hair longer here. I want the hair to be the same length all the way through. And it's possible for me to do that because of the way that I've used the crown to section off the back section from the top section. You see, when I comb that, okay, that all flows in together. The thing that's, I think, is really important when we're doing a haircut is to try to make the hair, you know, if we try to make the hair look the way that we want it to look when it's dry, it's never going to happen. The whole idea behind cutting the hair wet is so that all we're doing is we're getting the right length. We're not going for any finish work whatsoever. So trying to make the hair look the way that you want it to look when it's dry is a complete waste of time. Okay, so now we're coming into the side section. So this is where I'm going to change my whole technique, because what we want to do is we want to get this hair to move back using that wave and have it flow into the vertical layering that we took on the back, okay? So the sections that I'm going to take, they're all going to be slightly curved, and once again, I go much more into this technique, much more in depth on the rounded graduation on the blueprint video. So, you know, I would definitely go back to that to get more information. I'm going to take curved sections, and the thing that I'm looking for, okay, is I'm looking for where this hair begins to bend back. Because once again, if I cut this wave pattern shorter than where the wave bends back, then I'm into the root system, and it's going to look like this at the back. I'm going to lose all of the wave. If I leave it longer than the first bend of the wave, then it's just going to flip. So I take my first section and a curved section, and then what I do is I mold this hair up against my middle finger. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for where that hair begins to bend back. Now, this is where you need to have small scissors, because when I cut this section, I'm only going to be cutting from the tip of my middle finger to the second crease of my middle finger here. I'm not going to be cutting all the way through to where my fingers join, because I want to follow the shape of the head. And if I just cut from the tip of my middle finger and I cut all the way through to where my fingers join, number one, the first thing is I'm going to have an uneven section because there's a gap here between my fingers. So that means that I've got more tension happening here in this area than I will have here, okay? So I'll have an uneven section, and then I'll be cutting in a straight line, which means that this hair here will be longer than the middle, and the top part of the section will be longer than the middle. So what will happen is that the middle section will move back the way that I want it to. This area here and this area here will flip out. So these are the reasons why I'm cutting the way that I'm cutting. So I take my first section, fingers against the head for the very first section, and that's as far as I go. Then take the next section so that I'm moving around and around. Okay, so that when I comb that, see, that just moves back. Now, every section that I'm going to take after this first section is going to be lifted straight out from the head, so that by the time I get to where the back section meets the side section, I'm going to be in that position. Okay, so I'm going to take my next section, pick it up, lift it straight out from the head. Okay, so I'm now at the point where I'm joining the side section in with my section that I have already cut at the back. So now we're going to do exactly the same thing on this side. And there's going to be, the only difference is that I'm not going to take any notice of the side that I've cut on the left-hand side, because the wave pattern here is slightly different. So when I cut, I'm going to be looking for where the hair, the first bend of the wave, bends back, lifting this up between my fingers. With my first section, my fingers are going to be resting against the client's head, and then I'm going to be coming around the shape of the head in that position. So everything is going to be curved, 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 and curved. Okay, so here's my first section. And I'm going to mold it up against my middle finger once again so that I can see exactly the first bend of the wave. Pick this hair up, fingers against the head for the very first section. Cut there. Pick it up again. So that when you comb that, that just moves back by itself. And then I'm going to follow that all the way through, lifting straight out from the head. But that's what's really important, to get that hair to move at the first bend of the wave. Okay, so I'm now at the point where I'm joining the side section in with my section that I have already cut at the back. Getting close to where my sections join, okay, and I'm holding the hair straight out from the head, coming through and joining it with my back section all the way through, so that all of that just flows in together. You see, look, I love that, the way that that wave is moving in together like that. To me, that's what makes hair cutting exciting for me, is seeing how when you cut with one cut, remember, we're not going over and over and over the hair to try to make it work. Everything that we've done so far has been done with one cut to give us the texture that we want. And you see, this is just going to dry like this without really Anna having to do anything to it at all, which is the whole point. For me, it's the whole point of doing a haircut, is to make whatever style we give the client easy for the client to do. And as long as the hair is working the way it's supposed to work in relation with the style that you're giving the client, it's going to be very, very easy for the client to do. And for me, that's what brings the client back time after time after time, because you are really working with her hair to make it work. Okay, so when I do the top section, I am going to take a center parting, because what I need to do is I need to lock this wave in the front into the wave that I took on the side, and the same thing on this side here. So whether or not she has a side parting is not going to make any difference. So my sections here are going to be curved, and the curve will follow through to the curve that I took on the side, and then that will blend in with the vertical layering that I took at the back. Now, the thing that's really, really important is when I take my first section here in the front, when I hold this hair here, I'm not going to hold it against the head, because what I'm doing is I'm blending it with the side section here, which was held straight out from the head. If I take this section here and I hold it against the head, it's going to make this too long, which is going to make the rest of my layering through the top too long. So it has to blend with the section on the side here that I held straight out from the head. So I'm going to take my first section, so now I'm going to lift all of this hair here straight out from the head, blending it in with my side section here. So lift it, and I'm going to come through into a point in the middle, because then when I cross check, I will take that point out. I don't want to do it now because I'm cutting the hair wet, and I don't want to cut that center section. I might cut that center section too short if I'm following the shape of the head. So I'm coming around, still cutting from the tip of my middle finger to the second crease of my middle finger, and combing it so that all of that hair flows together. Okay, so right now I'm right here at the top. There's my guideline from the back. I'm cutting on the top of my fingers because it just makes it easier to follow the shape of the head. And I'm going to come through all the way through to the crown area. Now, we will do exactly the same thing on this side here, not taking any notice of the side that we have just cut, because once again, we're not making the hair even, we are working with the hair. There's a huge difference between making both sides even and working with the hair. So this wave here is a little different from the wave that we cut on the left-hand side. So once again, I'm going to pick the hair up, blend it with this section here that was held straight out from the head, okay? Before I go any further, you see that that wave flows into the side with the very first cut. This is what's so important. You know, when I'm doing a client, when I'm in the salon and I'm doing a client for the very first time, I'm picking the hair up and I'm cutting, and then I'm picking the hair up again, and then I'm cutting it again, and I'm cutting the same section over and over and over again until I get to where I think it should be. It could make the client very, very nervous because she's sitting there going, well, come on, you know, how many more times are you going to have to cut my hair before you move on, sort of thing. Whereas with this system, okay, you're cutting the hair to the right length with the very first cut. Okay, so now I'm going to be lifting this hair straight out from the head all the way through. Okay, we're going to start here at the back. Okay, and remember, we've only cut this one way. At the back, we only cut it vertically. So look, when I go to cross-check it, look, there's hardly anything there to cut. Now, what's going to happen is that as I come further and further up towards the crown, I'm going to get into that point right there. See, there's my point. So now I know that that has to go. And and I'm going to come all the way through to the front, rounding that point off. And I just think it's really, really important that we do this after we've cut the top, because then it's going to make sure that we don't cut this area through here too short. To do a haircut with this particular system and make the hair work for you the way that you want it. And that's the kind of texture that I want to see all the way through. So we've got the wave pattern working on the sides and the top, going into our vertical layering at the back with that really, nice shape that we talked about at the very beginning of the consultation. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow dry, and then after we've blown the hair dry, then we're going to finish it off so that it looks the way that we want it to look. Okay, so now we're just going into the finish work now. Okay, and all of this hair here, I'm just going to take off so that we have a nice, clean neck. And then when I come through to do the sides here, I'm just going to tighten those up just a little bit. But you see, all of this has to be done after the hair has been blown dry. All right, so that's our finished look.